Shalom, I'm Rabbi Garfinkel, and I welcome you to the Ask My Rabbi Show, the interactive video blog that gives you the opportunity to ask me anonymous questions about Judaism and to get life advice from a Jewish perspective. Today's question comes from Lisa and David in Huntsville, Texas, and as always, names and places have been altered for the sake of privacy. Lisa and David's question is, can couples have sex before marriage? If so, is it a double mitzvah to do it on Shabbat even if a couple is not married? Lisa and David, some people would say that the answer to your question is simple, and others would say that the answer is complicated. I would say that it is both simple and complicated. There is no question that, from an honest and traditional point of view, Jewish law forbids premarital and non-marital sexual relations. Having said that, the rules that one finds in books do not always exactly apply to modern situations. That is why many rabbis in the conservative movement, myself included, teach the concept of a ladder of human sexuality, an idea that was first popularized by Rabbi Dr. Elliot Dorff of the American Jewish University. I've created my own version of the ladder. My ladder of Jewish sexuality is in a pit, and the pit is filled with mud. Half of the rungs are beneath the mud, and half of the rungs are above the mud. Relationships beneath the mud are morally problematic at best, and totally immoral or even evil at worst. Those relationships above the mud line possess increasing degrees of sanctity the higher you go. At the very bottom of the ladder is rape. A relationship that is not mutually consensual is completely immoral and, of course, illegal in a criminal sense. One step up from there is adultery, consensual sex that violates a pre-existing sacred marriage and therefore harms a third party. One step up from adultery is anonymous sex, sex that has no personal commitment of any kind. Purchasing sex from a prostitute would fit into this category. Another step up, we find recreational sex, sex in which the partners know each other but are just doing it for fun. This is also known as friends with benefits. The next step up is the one-night stand, sex that people engage in with the possibility of a real relationship, but one that quickly falls apart because it lacks real sanctity. The highest rung underneath the mud line is called serial monogamy, sexual relationships that take place in temporary monogamous relationships that nonetheless lack the seal of mutual emotional love and commitment. You might call them 6-month stands or 1-year stands. That's where the mud line ends. Above the mud in the pit, things get progressively better. First, we have non-marital but committed relationships. This is sex that takes place in a relationship in which both people have permanently committed to each other, but who have decided for whatever reason to not marry. One step up from there is sex between engaged couples, those who have publicly stated their intention to marry in the very near future. At the very top of the ladder is real marriage. None of what I have said applies to teenagers. Teenage sex, although very common, is always a sin and is always beneath the mud line. The reason is that teenagers lack the mental capacity and maturity for genuine commitment. The rationale behind this ladder is that sex is not a black and white issue. Traditional halakha teaches that marital sex is a wonderful mitzvah, a good deed, and a commandment, and that anything else is a sin. While I myself believe that, I also think that Jewish law has to be meaningful for its society. There is a difference between recreational sex and sex between committed, unmarried people. That is a distinction that traditional halakha does not really recognize, but should. Now let's go to the second half of the question, the part where Lisa and David ask whether non-marital sex is a double mitzvah. The answer is that non-marital sex can never be called a single mitzvah, much less a double mitzvah. I do not mean to say that non-marital sex is a mitzvah or even that it is permitted. I'm simply saying that it is an understandable reality that people are going to engage in sex before marriage, and that the ladder of human sexuality exists to guide them in their decisions. And that's the end of this episode of the Ask My Rabbi Show. I'm Rabbi Eli Garfinkel of Temple Beth El in Somerset, New Jersey, and I wish you a Shavua Tov and a Shabbat Shalom. If you would like me to answer your question personally and quickly, please email it to me at rabbigarfinkel1@me.com. Thank you.